I'm delighted to welcome David Livermore, Professor of Microbiology at the University of East Anglia, and journalist and broadcaster Nina Myskow. David, let me start with you. Should we bring back COVID restrictions to save the NHS?
No, we supposedly saved the NHS 3 years ago with COVID restrictions, and clearly the NHS today is wobbling. We failed in that saving the NHS. And what's being talked of is bringing back masks. Well, look at China at present. The Chinese are incredibly assiduous maskers. Masks are still compulsory there. Every photograph shows them wearing masks. And yet they've gone from negligible numbers of cases a month ago to 250 million people infected within 3 weeks. Masks fail. They don't work. What we achieved with all the restrictions over the past 3 years was to disrupt our natural ecology with a range of viruses, flu, respiratory syncytial virus, rhinoviruses, also strep A. And we've got to re-establish that equilibrium. And that's what's happening at present. And if we put restrictions in place, all we do is we delay that re-establishment of an equilibrium. We keep kicking the can down the road. We create more and more of an immune deficit in ourselves, and it does no good. It makes it worse in the long term. We must take it on the nose, let the balance re-establish.
Nina Myskow, society can't afford any of these measures again, and the economy can't, can it?
Well, at the present, we're only talking about mask wearing. And I'd very much like to ask David, as a medical man, why do surgeons wear masks?
To stop splash of blood from surgery, to stop droplets of saliva and so on going into the patient's
Absolutely,
wound.
and also, presumably, to protect them too.
Against blood splash, but not against viruses.
Well, we don't know that.
A virus is so tiny, it passes through the pores on the mask.
Well, that's the first time I've heard that. The masks have been tested, and if there are 3 layers of their proper masks, like FFP2 or 3, and if they fit tightly, then you are protected. Now,
Look at the pictures from
explain to me,
China.
David, do condoms work all the time?
Yes, and if you stretched a condom over your head, then it would certainly be a decent barrier against a virus. However, you would be unable to breathe.
No.
It would kill you.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not suggesting that. I'm talking about condoms during sex. Now, condom is a barrier. It prevents, hopefully, pregnancy if you don't want it, and also sexual transmission.
I remember GCSE biology and my teenagers, and the male reproductive fluids. The condom's a barrier. The masks don't work in the same way.
No, they don't. But what I'm saying, it's a very crude analogy to say it's a barrier.
But it is a barrier.
It's a barrier. If you had a mask that fitted properly, a proper mask, it's been proven that countries that will have, in Japan and China, you cannot actually believe anything they tell you in terms of figures on who was wearing masks or case studies.
You can believe
Look at Japan.
Of your eyes.
But what about Japan? Okay, Japan.
Japan has had major surges of COVID over the past few months.
Japan has a population of 127 million.
Nina, first make your point, and I'll come back to you, Dave.
I'm going to say, Japan, the countries that have generally advocated mask wearing have had lower deaths from COVID. Japan, in particular, so far, 55,000 deaths, I believe, and a population of 127 million.
We don't know about T-cell immunity from Far Eastern populations. What about American states? Because that's more comparable. What about Florida, who lifted mask mandates months before California, and they have lower per capita age-adjusted deaths from COVID?
Well, who knows? But it makes logical sense to me. If the virus is airborne, which it is, then if you prevent yourself from breathing in, or you're prevented from breathing out an infected breath, then there's got to be more of a... There's got to be a chance.
If masks were made of condom rubber, you would be right. Unfortunately, you would not then be able to breathe through them.
We're not. That's an extreme example.
The weave of masks. No, but you raised condoms.
Yeah.
The weave of masks is such that the virus can get through them, or it can get around them. And you raised the topic of tightly fitted N95 masks. Well, they have been mandated in Bavaria, for example. I think 1 or 2 other parts of
Austria
Germany
as well.
But the parts of Germany where they've been mandated have fared no better and no worse than other parts of Germany where people have worn other.
David,
it depends how well people...